Here with Bruce Linton, co-founder of Tweed. Let me kind of let you introduce yourself and tell people why we're here and what you guys have done here in Ontario.
Sure. So Ontario, Canada, directly north of New York State. We started in what was once the Hershey factory, and we bought the building so that we could start a marijuana grow op. And it's not a small one. It's about 180,000 square feet total. About 168,000 square feet is the actual first footprint of the grow. And when you start inside the Hershey factory, you now have a very good angle for PR, because there was a movie called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and now everybody knows why the Oompa Loompas were so happy.
Oh yeah.
And you use
I got a Willy Wonka vibe when I walked in.
Exactly. And so you use that to open it up. And in Canada, we're allowed to do everything you would expect a normal business can do. We use banks. We use credit cards. We have Deloitte as an auditor. We pay just a normal corporate tax rate. But one thing we can't do is advertise our product. And so having a really good PR position really helped, which got us launched and moving. And that allowed us to buy a 7-acre or 350,000 square foot greenhouse in southern Ontario, near Niagara. And just recently announced acquiring a 55,000 square foot growing facility in Toronto, so in the center of the province. And it's sponsored by Bedrocan, which has been the Netherlands' leading grower and producer for the last 13 years. So that's what we've done.
And for those who aren't familiar, you guys just acquired Bedrocan. Can you talk about the synergy there, like what separates Tweed from Bedrocan and why it kind of makes like a nice partnership?
Yeah, so the Tweed brand is, we're wearing white lab coats, but pretty much everything about Tweed is a stylized black t-shirt with a very nice logo.
It's pretty slick.
And the whole way you should feel about interacting with Tweed is you can talk to anybody about anything related to marijuana, and it's just a conversation, as it may have been about any topic that there is, and that there's no airs about us. We're professional, but we're very accessible. And in the context of that brand, you could see us sponsoring music concerts so we can reach out to the right people. The Bedrocan brand is a perfect complement because it's the complete opposite. The containers they ship in look like medicine bottles. The white coat is worn everywhere, and it is a clinical trial type product. It's very pharma oriented. It's sponsored, been used in clinical trials against opioids and other materials in Europe in 6 or 7 countries for the last 12+ years.
And they've been operating in Holland for what, 15 years
yeah,
or so?
Yeah, and they got over here in Canada. So what we acquired was the building and everything, all the rights to Canada, but we also acquired all the rights to create that infrastructure in every South American and Caribbean country, and the first right of refusal, if it's lawfully permitted in America, to do the same thing. And so now what I have is this brand, very professional, very accessible brand, Tweed, and I have this one which has a lot of medical merit. And now the rest of the market's stuck in the middle. And when they go to ask for a little bit of capital, they have to compare how do you meet with this one and meet with that one, and we go wham.
Squeeze
them.
So
the whole idea is that when you put these together, now you have both sides of the market, and you try and move from 25% market share to a lot more. And with the platform I described before, we have the capacity to serve the market, and we just got to make sure it comes to us.
And you kind of talk about how, I guess in Canada, in terms of onboarding patients and clients, you need to be able to produce a certain amount of marijuana in order to meet your customer base before proceeding any further. So how do you see that going in terms of building the client base so you can expand? Because if you see the facility, this is a massive facility, a lot of room for growth.
Yeah. So we have a license to produce up between the 3 facilities, approximately call it 8,000 kilograms. So that's around 17,000 pounds of marijuana. And what it sells for per gram here is about $7.50 a gram. And so you have to get an inventory going so you can acquire patients. The patient count is growing at, I would call it 10% a month, because it started with a really small number only 14 months ago. But you can see it's growing rapidly. And the other part of the production, we now in the last 2 months, oils are becoming part of our market. So we have built some inventory so that we can convert that inventory into oils.
Well, I thought that was kind of interesting too. So there was a Supreme Court decision here that led to the oils being an option for you guys.
Yeah, Canada's, for the most part of marijuana, been very, I'll call, proper in what they approach. The one part that was a bit unusual is the only thing we could sell people were dried flowers.
For people to smoke.
Yeah, and so a lot of people vaporize, but it still looks like pretty good stuff to make a joint with. And so what we needed to see in Canada was the ability, and we were disallowed from selling oils. Now, through a court case, we're not only going to be allowed, but we can make a diversity of products which will look very similar to other pharmaceutical products when packaged the right way, which means even more doctors will get behind it and even more patients will want it. And then we can start fractioning them to the different types of oils so we can hit bigger markets. And it's just another layer of business.
So in terms of the oils too, I understand that before you maybe had to destroy a lot of materials, that now with the oils you can convert what you were essentially paying to destroy into something profitable.
Probably the most alarming thing for a lot of the people coming from the US up who've come for tours is there's this thing in the sector called trim, which is the leaves and the stems. And here we would put it through shredders and we'd have people observe its destruction because you couldn't use it. And
so you had somebody in the room like making sure you destroyed it?
Mixing it with some peat moss. We're in, go to California or Oregon, any of these Washington State, they're paying a lot to get that trim to make oil. So now what we do is we dry the leaves and the stalks, and you put it through a grinding process and use the extraction machine, and what was a waste becomes an income. But for this business, any investor that's looking at it, the key thing is a little bit these derivative products, but it's all about patients. Because the patients who get the prescriptions become active consumers. We've seen a good evidence of the relationship in terms of the ratio of frequency of buy, average value. So we're just more patients.
Can we stop there too? Because the way Health Canada works, you can have one licensed provider, right? So you have to fill out the paperwork, go to the doctor, and then are you pretty much hamstrung to one company when you sign up for these things?
Well, if you didn't pick us, it's maybe hamstrung, but I see where you're going. So the way it actually works is if you're a very sophisticated patient, you might go in and say, I want half of my order here. But when we did the acquisition of Bedrocan, we reviewed all the patients and there wasn't one who'd done that between the two companies. Yeah. So for the most part, people go, they get a script, and then they look around to see who will I provide that to. And they give it to us in a physical form, and that means for the duration of the script, unless they want to stop it early, we're their supplier. And you know what, the ones that get bad service, the call center's not available, or the product's not available, or it's a very limited selection, they churn. But we got a
shipment's late.
So we got a call center that runs 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, Monday to Friday. If you put your order in before 1, it ships the same day. We tend to always have a price of strains that range from $6 to $9 to $12. Now that we have Bedrocan, we got product from each company in both stores. So what we are is we're kind of like pick one licensed provider, get access to two. And I don't have to be the only choice every time, but I want to be one of the first choices every time and let them compare and contrast.
Any information on your new acquisition?
So Medcan Access?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we acquired another entity which is not a producer, but the game is about market share, client acquisition, and service to certain medical groups. So the entity we bought has physical locations, and you may be part of a Crohn's and colitis patients group. These folks have been experts at where to get the product, which product to use, how to access it. And so what we did is we bought the network into those communities, the physical locations. They have terrific genetics, and they've been investing in things like methods of consuming marijuana without vaping and without smoking, but that has the same instant effect.
Like a spray or?
Yeah, almost like if you were going to take something to deal with asthma. It looks very similar.
Like an inhaler.
But a different diffusion. And so we got some IP, we got some intellectual, interesting pieces in the genetics, but really this is about more clients who are from user groups that are well concentrated and focused.
So it's more about making sure you have enough to cover any sort of ailment someone may have, because people use this for all sorts of things.
Yeah, and you're going to find in Canada, well, we have 4 of the, call it 20-ish licenses in our group. That leaves the balance split across a whole bunch of people with one. And typically as these games get played out, you'll find that there's one entity in a kind of fractured market like that that can get to like a 40% market share, and then the rest of it gets split up between a whole bunch of small players. And so we're not interested in being the small player, we're interested in being the 40% player. And so what you want to have is a bunch of ways that people can feel good about choosing and get great service and product.
I guess that brings me to my next question about the name change for kind of the umbrella for Tweed. Can you talk about why the name change and kind of how you see each brand laying out like underneath this new umbrella? Yeah,
so all of the value of the company is at each of the holding company levels, so Tweed and a Bedrocan or a Tweed Farms. But to have a trading entity on the Toronto Stock Exchange, you need to have a holdco, if you will, at that level. And so we renamed the one we had as we added things to Canopy Growth Corporation. And the reason for that is it makes an awful lot of sense for these brands to be distinct. Now, what if I started a brand in Brazil? To say that it's part of Tweed gets more confusing than to take one step now. And what if we had a bakery? What if we got to the legalization and I could have dispensaries? What I'll have are a variety of brands that can each exist properly if I have a proper holdco.
Where they need, fit them where they need to be.
Right, so it's a bit of a take the time, do it now, and a year and a half from now, when you invest into this Canopy Growth Corp, you'll be able to see that all these underlying entities each have strength, and that feeds to good earnings on the top level.
Awesome. Bruce, thanks for having me. It's a beautiful facility, and
Thank you.
it's been a pleasure.
Enjoyed it, my Thanks.